So we are going to talk a little bit more about rebuilding, kind of rebuild on one of these, and then just some general thoughts on some roster construction eval on where they should go and what they should do. So we're going to be doing this for the next couple of weeks. These are YouTube submissions, and maybe some other ones. We got a bunch of them. We picked one or two. We'll keep going through them. You can resubmit. You can do whatever you want. But we picked two to go through that I like the question in the first one and the second one. Good context and all that. So these are the ones we're rolling with. You ready to go?
I am. The only comment that I would make on what you said is we did get some amazing submissions, and if you haven't already liked and subscribed and you submitted, come on, brother, help us out. So that's all that's the only context I'll add for that. But
for sure,
let's do it.
Let's go ahead and like and subscribe. Click those buttons. Rate and review on the podcast. All you have to do is click the 5 stars at this point. You don't have to do anything anymore. So if you haven't, why haven't you? But yeah, we're going to keep doing this. So keep submitting them, keep throwing them at us. So first one comes from Thomas Kaufman. He is currently the 6th seed in a 12-man full point PPR Superflex tight end premium 1.5 PPR Dynasty. I own 2 late 2024 first. His team is as followed. He has Brock Purdy and CJ Stroud, CMC, Breece Hall, Josh Jacobs, Brian Robinson. He has Jay Jetta, Pickens, Cooper, assuming it's Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, Addison, Mingo, Hyatt, and then the tight ends are Waller and Musgrave. We don't have the rest of the roster, which I do wish that we had a little bit more there. But he said, would you, with this roster, knowing I am top 3 in points against and top 4 in points scored, buy players or sell? You can only choose one.
Must choose one.
So what's your initial thoughts here, Big D?
Oh, my initial thoughts, Thomas, is this roster is already constructed pretty decent. I think let's just kind of go through each position here real quick. I know you already listed it. We got Purdy and Stroud, and I would say obviously that's a little weak in the sense of competition wise. I think those are both solid number 2 quarterbacks right now, so that may be a hole that I would look if we're going to compete with it. I think your running backs are extremely solid. Josh Jacobs, hopefully, with the the downfall of the leadership there in Vegas, they got sent to the pyramid or whatever. Hopefully he should see a lot more work and be on the same level as some of these output games with Breece. Maybe not CMC, but with Breece, CMC's on a tear. And then you got Brian Robinson holding up. I don't know what Casey pointed out here. We've got a few holes here. We don't know the whole team, and we also don't know what the what we're starting here is at 2 RBs and 2 wide receivers and a couple flex, 3 flex, 4 flex. But the hole for me right now is the quarterback position if you want to compete this year. It'll be hard probably to pull a quarterback at this point, especially with some of the injuries, or not hard, but it's probably going to cost you a little bit more than it might have a couple weeks ago. I think Musgrave in your tight end position with Waller banged up, you definitely can look at some spots there. But I would say that with this particular roster, you've already got you've got a couple late first. I don't know. For me, I think I tend to lean towards going for it. That's normally my default answer. So what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I mean, with some of these there, I think the quarterback is a little holy, but I think pointing out that we're at a tough spot in quarterbacks in general, just throughout the league. I mean, Jesus, with buys and injuries this week, there is going to be a lot of problems in Superflex with getting a starting quarterback worth a damn out there. So that can help you out through this period. Do some of them get healthier? Potentially some of them are just out for the season. So I probably wouldn't go trying to buy a quarterback there unless it's taking CJ Stroud or Brock Purdy and adding one of those first 2 and going up and getting somebody. That's fine, because for that's not just a 1-year fix. I'm going for it. That helps the duration of your team out here. with that being said, there is, a whole lot of, projected good quarterbacks going to be in the first round of the draft this year in your super flex draft.
Right.
So, you could potentially use one of those quarterbacks at draft time to go, acquire another or somewhere now to go pick up another first. Your running backs are great. And I think you'll get another year of awesomeness out of CMC for sure at this point. So I'm not concerned with being like, hey, it's love it or shove it with those guys. And the rest of your guys, Brees is just getting back to being Brees. Josh Jacobs is, has been perennially great, even though situation hasn't been good throughout his career. He's been really good. And Brian Robinson is a great little filler for you. That's been a nice surprise. Justin Jefferson, if Justin Jefferson had Kirk Cousins and there wasn't questions there, I say he's kind of enough with CMC to carry you to be in any matchup in the playoffs, right? But other than that, with Dobbs and Jaron Hall, I think Justin Jefferson will be fine with Dobbs, but maybe you're not going to get quite the ceiling that you would normally get. He's at least not scared to play him at this point, as maybe if Hall was your quarterback for the rest of the year. So that makes me feel a little better. And then Waller and Musgraves, with it being 1.5, if Waller was healthy, I think maybe I would actually lean a little bit more towards, why don't you trade for a quarterback and go compete and maybe try to find one more wide receiver, because you do have Justin, JJ, and Addison. And, with not Kirk being there, that's a tough to start both of those guys. So I think I'm in the sell category of, I think I'd, if I'm being honest with myself here, I'm thinking I got a really good roster. Maybe I don't go right away and sell. Maybe I wait a week or two here and see what it looks like and see where I go. But I think I'm more leaning towards the sell side of things. Who I would sell, obviously I'm not selling Justin Jefferson. It's tough to sell Waller right now. What would be on the sell side for you, Big D? I mean, I guess you could be moving, Jacobs or CMC, but I don't really want to get rid of either one of those guys. So I don't know how much, I don't know what the rest of your roster looks like. So I don't know how much these pieces I'm interested in really selling off of. I think that's a little bit of my conundrum here. So,
well, and that's part of the reason why I said I'd kind of lean in the go for it, because I don't know any piece on here that I'd really want to sell, because I think you're close enough that whether you just hold tight and make some moves with these late first, either in the draft or a little bit further or not. I mean, I guess Waller and maybe Addison would be the two players that I could see on here that I could down the road, or maybe Addison now and Waller down the road a little bit once he gets healthy for someone's stretch run, is hopefully his hamstring strings up and he's able to come back and produce for enough to get off of him. But for me, it's like I don't really see the move here to sell. Yeah. And so that's why I'm like, can I take Purdy and one of those first and go get trying to think of who's down in the upper tiers right now. Like, I don't know what the cost wise would be, and it might have to be Stroud. I would start with Purdy personally. I think I would want to keep Stroud over Purdy. But either one of them, can I take one of those and flip him for, a couple weeks ago, I would have said Burrow, right? Because Burrow was struggling. Right. Could I flip him for Herbert, Lamar Jackson? That might be the play that I would look to do is can I move on from one of those quarterbacks and bundle it, like you said, with a first, and maybe it's a first and, maybe it's a first and I think I'd be okay with giving up Addison. If I have JJ and I have Addison, the way I like to play, I don't normally like to play with both, wide receivers. I think they both have value and I think you could both plug them in, but I tend to try to maybe move on with Addison that first and send Brock and get a top tier, quarterback and then some veteran pieces back as well. Especially if I'm going to move Addison along with that and just see if can I get like I don't know if I'd go for Thielen per se, but that kind of archetype. Can I get a Hollywood Brown with Murray coming back? Depending on what the owner has, something like that. Because then I think you're competitive enough. You're going, your Waller is still the question mark in your lineup in the long run, but again, I don't know. I mean, I guess outside of that, I would probably try to sell Cooper. If I'm in sell mode, I would try to sell Cooper and Addison and Waller would be the three on here. But you stated in here that your top 4 in points scored, which kind of tells me with this lineup that there could be an absolute juggernaut, but there might be a little bit less. It may not be super top heavy. And I think you can score in a playoff game with CMC, Breece Hall, and Josh Jacobs, and hopefully by then JJ, when he comes back, enough points to be competitive to make a push. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, my tight end suggestions would be low end. Maybe try to go get a Logan Thomas in here if you're going to try to compete. And if you wanted to get a little higher end, I would like a Cole Kmet. Obviously, he just bounced back a little bit in this last game, so maybe the owner isn't as, but not overly expensive. But guys who are not going to kill your lineup, I feel like just getting those points that Waller was piecing together for you back in your lineup would be good. I think Musgrave can be startable. I think it seems to be all there. It's just not working out. I love the piece long term, but I think with Brock Purdy and CJ Stroud being healthy right now, and like I said, a lot of them not being healthy, you may be able to strike on a team who is feeling pretty good about themselves, but did just lose Kirk Cousins, or something along those lines. And maybe it's Kyler Murray that you try to get, because he doesn't necessarily, maybe he starts in a week or two. And maybe who knows how it goes, but his value hasn't peaked back up yet. We're not sure if he's starting. They could be, maybe they go with Tune the rest of the season and they're just kind of dangling Murray in front of you a little bit. But Kyler would probably be one of those guys. You mentioned Herbert. People are a little down on him right now.
Trevor Lawrence is another one that they're down on.
And Trevor would probably be the 3 quarterback targets that I would go for. You mentioned Lamar. I think if you could get Lamar as well. He's just yeah.
I mean, it kind of depends upon what those other teams are doing. If they're struggling,
right. But now might be a great time to strike for a quarterback, because there is some downs, to check who those are, and then I'd be fine with adding one of those first, either one of those quarterbacks. I would try for Purdy first. I like what could be with Stroud. The allure might be, the mystique is a little higher on Stroud. I think we kind of know what Purdy is, for the most part. At least, I don't think there's a crazy ceiling with Purdy. There's going to be up and down games just with how the Niners do things. But anyway, what were you going to say, Big D? Sorry.
No, I was just nodding along. I mean, and you could try to sell just one of those first by itself and maybe go get like a Russell Wilson or something like that too. Right. Again, it's dependent upon the league and depending upon the owner situation. But yeah, I don't think I would sell hard on this, because I think you're really close. So even if you decided not to make any moves and just kind of, let's see what the next couple of weeks go, let's see where my first ends up, and then right before your trade deadline, really make a decision. I don't hate that idea either. Is another way to say that is don't force it. Like, you don't have to make the deal. You don't have to sell Brock Purdy and your 2 firsts to go get competitive in week 8, because we're still quite a few Sundays from fantasy playoffs. Right. And so that wait and see approach, or lightly touch the field, see what's out there, and you can plant some seeds too, right? If you do put some out there, just say, hey, I'm interested in these players. If they reject right away, say, hey, thanks for looking, I'm interested in these players. If you change your mind later on, hit me up, let me know, and at least you've planted a little bit of the seed that you're interested in them. And hopefully if those other teams decide to flip on the players that you targeted, you'll be top of mind for those guys when they go, you know what, I am going to sell this guy. So
let me go back to Thomas here. Yeah, and I think that's a great piece of advice there, Big D. And then go just real quick, going back to the Kyler thing, like trading for him, value still down, and he may or may not help you. And I think he's a top asset eventually when he returns. And then the other one, maybe Anthony Richardson. Maybe somebody was all right with Anthony Richardson on the IR because they had one of those other quarterbacks, but now the other quarterback's hurt, and maybe you can go get Anthony Richardson, who won't affect your team draft picks for this year and will help you get a worse draft pick potentially, but in the long term, going to be really good for you. So
what's your take on Fields? Is he in the same field as Murray, or
I could be okay with sending one of those first right now for Fields and see if he comes back and maybe it elevates your team and you can you're not really losing anything there off your team. You might catch a win or two there, and one Fields comes back, maybe you explode. But yeah, sure. I'm a little worried about Fields long term, but if you can get him on the cheap, I think fantasy points wise, he's always going to be just fine. It's just going to be how long does the NFL shelf life last? I think he's plenty talented. I don't know that the Bears did him, any favors per se. So
yeah, I don't think they did at all.
But unfortunately, the leash gets a little shorter as you move to the next team, and then maybe even one more. You only get a few games by the time you're on the third team in the window of people will hop on your back really quick without giving you the benefit of the doubt, which is my concern with Fields as you go down the line. Then it's, hey, you got to wait a little bit of time, and then, hey, remember Fields, and then he gets a shot for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So. All right, we're going to hit one more before we wrap this one up. And I just wanted to say you let it off. A lot of really good submissions, but we are getting a lot with just a ton of picks already, like 3 or 4 firsts this year, 3 or 4 firsts next year, a bunch of seconds. All I can say is, guys, you're doing a great job. That's awesome, but it doesn't really give me much to talk about. I don't know what to tell you to do with those first right this minute. I think the best thing to do is some things like Big D just said, plant those seeds and let people know that, hey, throw some firsts out there for some guys that the first probably isn't going to get, but at least know that you're shopping and plant those seeds. And then also that, hey, keep an eye on those middle of that 4 through 8 team that are all battling. And as they see, hey, oh man, he's got a bunch of firsts already. Maybe I should be trying to get a first right now. And they have some good players that, hey, I need to tank and get rid of, Breece Hall for some reason or Bijan for some reason. Hey, maybe I can buy him for 2 firsts instead of at face market value, because they're like, oh, I'm a little behind the 8 ball and I've lost 2 games in a row. Keep those guys right. See where that, guys who are looking like they might miss the playoffs and are ready to give up in a few weeks. Keep your eye on those middling teams to kind of strike while the iron's hot with some of those, picks that you have. Start with the 25s. Don't even give them the 24s right away, and throw some firsts and seconds at them and see if you can grab some young, good players off their team, cornerstone like players that maybe they're like, hey, I need to sell. First.
It's a solid point. You don't have to be first by a mile, right? Like if you're trying to get the 101, 102, you don't have to own that pick by negative 600 points by the end of the season, right? Like towards the end of the deadline, you could move a pick or 2 for some really high quality players for next year to add to that lineup and still be okay if you add some points to your lineup. On the flip side, if you're going for the 101, the 102, when you're thinking of making some of these deals, think of think of the points that you're trading out as part of that package, right? But be smart about it. We could talk about that a little bit more in depth with better examples, but I think what you said, Casey, is right on point. So is it kneel or not to kneel? That's going to be our next question, I think.
That is the next question. You want to take this one?
Sure. So this guy right away knows how to get on the show. He's like, hey, love your guys' analysis. Keep doing what you're doing. All right. Thanks, Neil. Got an interesting rebuild situation. So we got a 10-team super flex. It's a half-point PPR. It doesn't look like there's any tight end premium right out the cuff here. So team is quarterback, Herbert, Baker, Stafford, Breece, Warren, Khalil Herbert, Kendre Miller, Bigsby, Amari,
DeMarcado. I'm not sure how to say that guy's name.
Yeah, DeMarcado, Tucker, and Latavius Murray. Wide receivers, we got CD, Devontae Smith, Ayuk, London, Downs, Dobbs, Dotson, Atwell. Yummy. That's a great lineup. Mm-hmm. We got Laporta, Musgraves, Ferguson holding down the tight end position.
Nice. So,
and then the context here is he's currently 2-5. He's number 10 overall for points. He traded. He's made a few moves. He has his own first. He has a mid first and a couple seconds going into this coming draft. The main juice of it, what he was trying to find out is some of the targets he's thinking about are Bijan and Tajee Spears for this team. So I guess before we get into his targets, what do you think? Just knowing the team here, looking at the team, what do you think? To build or not to rebuild? That is your question.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's not scoring a ton of points. Brees, not being in the beginning of the season, scoring you a bunch of points probably hurt a little bit. And CD's been, a little up and down. Devonta Smith's been a little up and down. Drake started a little slow. And so, he probably, there's a decent chance that, the first couple of weeks he might not have scored a ton of points. Herbert's been up and down. So I think you're in a little bit more of a retool than a rebuild. It's a 10 team. So that's also, you like to be a little deeper when you see the 10 teams. I'm going to be honest. Don't play in any 10 teams. I'm playing 12. I started 8 and 10s a long time ago, and I've since got out of those because I don't like it as much. I prefer the 12. So little out of my element with the 10, but I think you got to stop. Like, you're right where you want to be with the receivers. That's awesome. Love that. Love pretty much every single receiver on that team. Brees is awesome. He's not going anywhere. Warren's fun. Herbert on IR. So I like those guys. And then, Tank Bigsby could, garner a lot of value for you. Kendre, my dog, I think we're probably a year away from hoping that there's some value comes back on that. And so we see or another injury. Tavius Murray is Sean Tucker. Maybe we'll see a little bit more of him at the end of the season and see what he has quarterback wise in one, or it's super flex. So, Stafford might miss some time, and then you're Herbert and Baker. So I think you're probably in we need to angle for some stuff. I would probably be looking for a quarterback would be what I'd want. I feel like as you get less teams, I want to be more heavy in the quarterback and tight end range. Is that how you feel about that, Big D, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think right off the cuff, he's looking to get running backs. So if you're looking to get running backs and you're trying to upgrade your first, that may not be the best upgrade your first, as in trying to get an early first with your own first. That may not be the play here. I think sell Baker, sell Stafford, hold tight. I don't think that you're competitive in the 10 team just with your running back room. And I don't think I would invest heavily this year because I do think you're a quarterback away as well in the super flex. So in my opinion, I definitely think I would try to get off Baker. I would try to get out of Stafford, get some value back, and then just kind of ride it and see what happens. I don't think I would sell anybody in my wide receiver room. I mean, if somebody is knocking down the door for Downs for a first, I might think about the Downs or Dubs. I might think about that just because Downs is in a situation where he's not going to have the same quarterback next year, right? Because AR should be back, and there's some hype on Dubs, and if I can get a first out of it, I don't know where
maybe you can put Dobbs and Dubs together and get a first,
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could.
Probably not, but maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But I think in general, just from what you've stated here and just kind of gut feel of thinking about a starting lineup or a roster with we pay I play and I think you're the same, Casey. We outside of FFPC, huge benches, and so if I think of like 60 players back into the waiver pool, that's a lot of players, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so that just a long way of saying that I think that your concepts of going for Bijan and Spears are not bad. I just don't think that maybe Spears, but for Bijan, I don't think his value is gonna. I don't think. Should I say this? I don't think it's gonna spike much more than what it's already been at, right, for the rest of the season. Like, I don't see them going away from Arthur Smith. I don't see Arthur Smith going away from what he's already doing. So I think that if you want to target those players, I would target them later on once you've kind of got less points in your lineup to help that first, if that makes sense.
He did say he's hoping to draft a quarterback with his early first this year to adjust the quarterback position. So I love the idea of Baker, like we talked about on the last team. Baker and Stafford probably. I mean, Stafford is a little banged up right now, so we're not sure. But Baker at least could. He said he just traded Pickett for Baker and a pick. So I think you could potentially sell Baker to somebody who needs a stopgap here. And look, I mean, Baker's playing good enough to. I don't think it's his one and done for Baker. It seems like be a starter somewhere. Even if it's another bridge for another team, I think that's a great call there. The Bijan thing for me is he says he'd want to give up 2 firsts and one of Devonta Smith Ayuk or London, I would take that 25 first and one of those guys and throw it for Bijan. I wouldn't throw all three of those things at Bijan right now. I think what you're saying is a good idea of like, I don't know how much, obviously anything could happen. Maybe Arthur Smith, gets knocked in the head with something and realizes that I should be featuring Bijan like CMC. Now, that being said, I wish the Niners would just give some other backs a little bit more work because I don't want my guy even getting as much work as CMC has been getting. And they've got a good enough guy in Algier, so I get it. But I would throw that 25 first, and Devonta Smith's probably not super attractive right now, but Ayuk or London are scoring points. So I would throw one of those guys at Bijan first, and then just sit tight, don't do anything. So you're not interested in go. He says I'd want to give up any of my running backs in a second for Spears.
Yeah, I mean, I think since Henry didn't leave, that was the question. Was he going to leave? Was he not? Like, I think that any of his quarterbacks not named Brees in a second, if I could do it, I would just do it. That's fine. But I don't think you necessarily have to do that right this moment is really what I was saying. I do think targeting Spears is, something that I do. I really like the player. I like the concept and I like the system for that player. But I don't know if you have to do that right now. I think that, when Herbert comes back off of IR or, maybe I don't know who has Tajee, but if for some reason the Etienne owner has him and you can move Bigsby, I wouldn't add a second to that though. I would trade Bigsby for Spears and maybe a third or something if I have to. But I think that, I love the concept of what it is. I agree with Bijan. If you can get him for a 25 first and a wide receiver, then sure. I would, not CD, of course, but yeah, if I could I think I would want to send London out of what he, out of Devontae Ayuk and London. I think I would want to send London there. Just because he's kind of locked into that system and we kind of know-ish what he's got. He's got enough top end that it might be sexy but yeah, I think for Tajee, I for Spears, I think I would just kind of, I would kind of hold because especially if your goal is to get that early first, I wouldn't want to try to add points to my lineup at this point. I think I'd be trying to subtract them. So
yeah. Yeah, maybe you can take Amari from the cards here, who's scoring some points. I don't know when Connor's going to be back. I would assume relatively soon, and add a 2 to him and pick up Spears potentially, but I don't know if you're going to. But yeah, I like everything you said there, Big D. I'm not in favor of getting Spears, but if you could trade Kendre for Spears, you'd probably do it. I'm a big fan of Kendre, so I don't really want to get rid of him.
Yeah, I mean, I like Kendre too, and I don't know if they're too far off, right? Like the way that we and you're
just seeing him, people are more excited about the electricity Spears right now.
But Kendre is not costing you points towards that first, right? So that's where I think I would just hold him and not try to move him for Spears.
Remember how quickly the Kendre hype bubbled back up in that preseason game that he played in at the end of the year where he caught a 40-yard, wheel route and then had a nice run or two. Everybody was like, oh yeah, Kendre again. So that excitement can boil back over. So anything else to add to Neil's team here?
No, I will say it looks like Neil's been working hard on the waiver wire with some of these names is what I'm thinking. And I like that, Neil. If you do decide to start to sell, don't stop working that waiver wire. That's one great way to pick up some early thirds and fourths is to work that waiver wire and then say, hey, I noticed that you bid on this person and try to move them for a pick. So don't check out if I guess that's for everyone, not just for Neil. If you do decide to sell, don't check out of, look at what people are dropping, look at what's being picked up off that waiver wire. And I'm assuming the 10 team has a little bit more depth because you never know what you could pick up either for your future or to add to asset building as you go along. So, yeah.
I'm not trying to poo-poo the idea of getting Bijan on this team. I wouldn't go super heavy off the rip. And if you chose to throw a mid first and then another first the following year with one of those guys, I guess I'd be okay with it. I don't think I'd go hot and heavy with that right now. I don't think you need to, like Big D said. So anything else to add before we get out of here?
That's it. We made it.
We did. We made it.
Looks like you made it.
Well, we appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for the submissions. Keep them coming because we are going to keep doing this. You can throw them at the FF Dynasty Twitter. Send us a DM. You can hit us up on the Instagram. You can leave them in the comments below. But we're going to keep doing this. For the next few weeks, foreseeable future here. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, however many. We can kind of fit in a week. Our time is a little bit limited, but we very much appreciate you guys sharing all this and sharing the love, and we'll try to reciprocate and do as many as we can. But I don't think we need as many with a million firsts. So very much appreciate it. But down the line we can talk about, hey, I got all these first. What should we do a little bit? But I don't think we're quite there yet. But the best thing is that those things can't get hurt. They're great. They're insured at a really high rate, and they're just going to get more valuable as the rookie draft comes around, regardless if people think, oh, well, it's all about the 25 class or not. In general, they stay very valuable until draft day. So keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate y'all. Keep tuning in each and every week. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment below. We got the $5 holler on Patreon. You get access to the Discord. We do 3 extra shows a month over there. Lots of fun stuff, and actually we're heading over there right now to talk about some just questions from the Discord, some more Dynasty trades, maybe another team review from the patrons. So hope to see you over there soon. Love you guys. Peace.